Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu. I'm back with another Buddyfight deck profile video. Today I'm going to be talking about the Dragon World deck of Blood Dragon Sect. Blood Dragon Sect, for those who don't know, is a little bit different than most Dragon World deck, where the idea is you have a size 3 and then you soul buff the size 3 and make a very difficult wall for the opponent to get through. Except Blood Dragon Sect has the unique ability to control how combat is dictated for your opponent. So as of the Glory Valiant side of Buddy Ragnarok, they are getting a lot of decent and new tools, so let's just dive right in and talk about them. So the first thing they're getting is Diz Lure, which is just another soul builder card. So she has the standard ability where you could put this card from your hand into the soul of a Blood Dragon Sect monster. And then while she's in the soul, she prevents her ability and the abilities of all your Blood Dragon Sect cards on your field from being nullified. So a little bit of basic protection. And then she also has another ability during your opponent's turn. If this card is in the soul of a Blood Dragon Sect monster, when your opponent's monster is destroyed by your card effects, you get to draw a card and deal 1 damage to your opponent. Drawing a card and burning the opponent all on their turn is pretty solid. Next, they got Dedan Approaches, so for 2 life, you get to choose a Blood Dragon Sect monster on your field, and then tutor out 2 Blood Dragon Sect monsters from your deck with different names, and put them into his soul. And you can only do this once per turn, but tutoring is obviously very, very powerful because it guarantees the cards that you want to be put in are going in. And then the last big card for the main deck that they got is a new item in the form of Nemesis Soul. At the start of each player's main phase, you basically get to put the top card of your deck into the soul of a Blood Dragon Sect monster, so continuing that soul building theme. On top of which, at the start of the opponent's attack phase, choose a Blood Dragon Sect monster on your field. And for this turn, when your opponent's monster attacks, change the attack to the chosen card. Again, just sticking on theme with controlling how combat works. Obviously, you're going to choose your big size 3 and redirect the attacks to him, so that way he could pick off the opponent's board before he can even attack himself. Speaking of our size 3, we're going to be running Deadly Eyes because he's just the best size 3. The rest of the deck is going to be fairly standard, but Deadly Eyes is probably still also going to be the buddy for the deck. And as far as what he's doing, he just gets to stand all of the opponent's monsters, so if they were previously rested due to an effect, then they wouldn't be able to attack. So standing all of the monsters is pretty important for certain cards. And then he nullifies all of their abilities, and then they have to attack this card. And then he can also counterattack all attacking monsters. So obviously the whole idea is his ability will just have all of the monsters attack him, he'll destroy them all, and then he will live because of his Soul Guard, on top of which having a whole bunch of different effects because they're all stacked in his soul. He's just the key linchpin card of the deck and is really important. And then, as I said, the rest of the deck really isn't doing a whole lot different than what it used to be doing. You're playing Deep Lurker as another soul buff card, and while he's in the soul, he protects the soul, so he makes it so that the soul can't be dropped. And then during your opponent's turn, if this card was in the soul, when your opponent's monster is destroyed by card effect, you basically get to gain a gauge and gain a life. Black Chain is in there because he has the added effect when he goes into the soul, you can draw a card, which is pretty good. And then while he's in the soul, the damage you take is reduced by 1. So having multiple Black Chains means you will have a lot of damage reduction. Marrow Ellis is in there because she reduces the gauge cost of all of your Blood Dragon Sect cards by 1, so this does include your item, but just having gauge reduction just helps save some resources. And then when this card enters the field, you can discard a card and then search your deck for a Blood Dragon Sect monster with eyes in its name and add it to your hand. So most of the time, this is just going to be for Deadly Eyes, but this does have a little implementation in Lost World, which I'll get to in just a moment. Next, we have Tan Dust, which is a great support card for being on the field because this card gets plus 1,000 power and defense for each soul in cards on your field. So that includes him, that includes your item, that includes just everything. And then when this card attacks, you could put a card from your drop zone into the soul of a Blood Dragon Sect monster on your field, and then gain a life and draw a card if you do. He's just a pretty solid support card overall. Next, we're running Eternity Edge, because he is another soul buff card that will also draw you a card when he goes into the soul. And if this card is in the soul, the Blood Dragon Sect monster will get plus 3000 power, plus 1 crit, and penetrate. So just a lot more keywords. And then as far as the spells go, we're going to be running Grand Entrance because it is your fairly standard check the top 3, except one of the cards will go into your gauge, one will go into your hand, and then the other will go into the drop zone or soul of a monster on your field. Spirit Echo is the spell form of soul buffing, so you could put this card into the soul, and then while it's in the soul, your opponent can't call monsters from the drop zone, which can be pretty powerful. And while it's in the soul, the Blood Dragon Sect monster will get plus 3000 defense and move. So just more stat buff and another keyword. And then Unlimited Illusion only works if you have a Blood Dragon Sect monster on your field and it destroyed a monster on your opponent's field. And all it does is just gain you 2 life and draw 2 cards. Obviously, more card draw is good. Prohibited Ceremony will basically gain you 2 gauge, gain you 2 life, and draw a card. So just your general resource gaining card. Dragon Hour Execution basically checks the top 5, and then you add 2 cards among them into the soul of a monster on your field, and then the rest will go to the bottom of the deck. So just, again, more soul buffing, except it's checking the top 5. Dragonic Exchange is in there just because it's a fairly solid card because we do gauge a decent amount, where you could just fix your hand by swapping a card from your hand into your gauge after gaining a gauge. And then we have King of Dedan, which is basically doing everything the deck really wants to do. It's putting a monster from your drop zone into the soul of a Blood Dragon Sect on your field. It's gaining you a gauge and drawing you a card. So just very solid. Sky Dragon Divinity is a pretty solid draw spell, but you have to make sure you have 10 cards or less in your drop zone, otherwise you can't cast it. But you get to return 3 cards from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck and draw 2 cards. So this could help recycle Lost World if it ends up in the drop zone, on top of which just drawing cards and putting cards back into the deck is usually a good thing. Next, we have Grace of the Sun Deity. Because it's Grace of the Sun Deity, it protects our monster from being destroyed by card effects because he still does have that vulnerability. But it also helps protect us from burn in case we don't have a solid setup to stop a lot of extra burn damage. And then lastly, we are running Lost World, in part because it's Lost World, but we do have some added synergy with Lost World because now we have a Blood Dragon Sect monster in Lost World. And that card is going to be Passion Eyes. So this card is absolutely nuts, and the fact that we could search it off of Marrow Ellis is also really, really good. So what he does is, during the opponent's attack phase, nullify the abilities of all monsters and items on your opponent's field. This ability can't be nullified. And then counteract, during your opponent's attack phase, if no cards are in battle, choose any number of monsters in stand on your opponent's field, and all of those monsters on the field attack this card. It's just doing basically what Deadly Eyes is doing, but better. Pair this up with the other Deadly Eyes, and it's just a very, very hard board state for the opponent to deal with as far as combat, because you basically get to control how they're going to be attacking all of the time. But the rest of the Lost deck could be whatever you want. I would just highly recommend using Passion Eyes in your Lost deck because obviously he is a Blood Dragon Sect monster, and he has a lot of synergy with the deck already. And then as far as some of the other cards that you could possibly use, you could use some of the generic tech cards or some of the other cards from DragonBlood Sect. So the options are really up to you on how you want to run it. This is just my interpretation on what I feel like a solid DragonBlood Sect deck is going to be looking like. But the deck definitely does look pretty powerful and pretty scary. That's kind of all I really have for this deck profile. As always, I'll have the deck list in the description below. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions about the deck or just want to leave a comment in general. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content, and I will see you in the next video.